Hey there, my name is Dr. Cork and today I am making several variations on the classic cocktail, the Old Fashioned. The Old Fashioned was one of the simpler and earlier versions of cocktails in the 19th century. The first documented definition of the word cocktail was in the issue of The Balance and Columbian Repository in Hudson, New York in 1806. According to the newspaper, it was a potent concoction of spirits, bitters, water and sugar. The name came later, as cocktails became more complex and drinkers began to ask bartenders for something simpler and more old-fashioned. Traditional recipe calls for bourbon or rye whiskey, but the old-fashioned has long been more a type of cocktail rather than a specific recipe. That's why modern bartenders make old-fashioned on rum, tequila and, in general, any aged alcohol. Today I'm going to make both the traditional version and the more modern varieties of the old-fashioned cocktail with rum, tequila and even gin. But first, hit like, subscribe and let's begin. For the classic old-fashioned we're gonna need an appropriately named old-fashioned glass. The glass should be chilled, that's why mine is straight from the freezer. In essence, old-fashioned is whiskey, seasoned, sweetened and diluted. So for the sweet part, add a teaspoon of sugar or, in my case, a sugar cube. A couple dashes of Angostura bitters to add a bit of bitterness, and a teaspoon of water. I prefer using sparkling water, which is not the traditional way, but it dissolves sugar better than still water. Using a muddler, or as I call it, the great equalizer, muddle the sugar until you are left with basically a simple syrup with bitters. There's nothing wrong with using a simple syrup instead of sugar and water, but this is the way of the OG bartenders. When the sugar dissolves completely, add bourbon or rye whiskey. In theory, the cocktail was invented to improve the taste of cheap whiskey, but I prefer using quality alcohol. Not sponsored. For roses, contact me. 2 ounces, 60 milliliters. Put a big ice ball to the glass. You can use regular ice cubes instead. And stir the cocktail. Dilution is a very important step in making almost any cocktail, so don't skip on it. Now express the oils from an orange peel and garnish the cocktail. And this is how you make the old-fashioned. Sweetness from the sugar is balanced by the bitters. Bitterness helps to cut through the sweetness and adds the depth of flavor to the cocktail. Whiskey adds a smoky, woody and slightly spicy flavor to the cocktail, and the orange twist adds a bright and refreshing zesty note to the old-fashioned. Perfect. Another popular variation is Tequila Old Fashioned. Cocktails like Margarita benefit from dry, earthy Blanco tequila, but the Tequila Old Fashioned calls for Añejo or Reposado tequila, which is more similar to whiskey. It's often aged in used whiskey barrels and takes on the vanilla, caramel and spice notes from the barrel while providing the roasted agave notes that tequila drinkers love. Fill the old-fashioned glass with ice and stir it to chill the glass. This is another option if you don't like to keep your glass in the freezer. Discard the ice and add a couple dashes of orange bitters. It would be even better to add grapefruit bitters, because tequila and grapefruit go together like bacon and eggs, but I don't have any, so I'm sticking with orange bitters. Add agave syrup instead of sugar, a quarter ounce, 7 milliliters. Tequila is made from agave, so the combination of flavors is perfect. Now tequila. The best option is to use aged tequila like Añejo or, in my case, Reposada. It has a softer and more complex flavor. 2 ounces, 60 milliliters. Fill the glass with fresh ice and stir thoroughly for 20 seconds or so. As I said earlier, dilution is very important. Now take a grapefruit slice and sprinkle it with a tiny pinch of salt. It doesn't sound obvious, but salt makes grapefruit sweeter by reducing its bitterness. Express the essential oils from a grapefruit peel and put the salted grapefruit slice onto the glass. And this is how you make Tequila Old Fashioned. Sweetness from the agave syrup is not overpowering. It provides a subtle and smooth taste that complements the bitterness from the tequila and orange bitters, and the tequila adds an earthy flavor. I'm usually not a fan of tequila, but this is a beautiful cocktail. The next cocktail is Rum Old Fashioned. I'm not big on whiskey, and in my opinion, aged rum can be way better than bourbon or rye in the Old Fashioned. It often plays nicer and provides more contrast to the drink's other flavors than grain or corn-based booze ever could. So, to the Old Fashioned glass, add a teaspoon of maple syrup. You can use simple Demerara syrup or even honey if you want. Angostura bitters, 2 dashes, and orange bitters, also 2 dashes. Then we're gonna need some quality aged rum. None of that light Bacardi Havana Club nonsense. I'm using an 18-year-old Flor de Caña. This video is still not sponsored, by the way, but I'm open for cooperation. 2 ounces, 60 milliliters. If your rum is not that great, you can improve it by infusing it with allspice, also known as pimento. Simply crush a few peppercorns of allspice, add them to your 2 ounces of rum, and let it sit in warm place overnight. Then strain and use this liquid. Fill the glass with ice and stir it well for about half a minute. Express the oils from an orange peel and garnish with an orange chip. And this is how you make Rum Old Fashioned. Maple syrup and orange bitters create a well-balanced cocktail. It is both sweet and tangy, with a complex flavor profile. Aged rum adds a nice oaky flavor, it rounds out the drink and creates a smooth finish. A delicious and sophisticated cocktail for those who, like me, are not whiskey lovers. Unlike whiskey and rum, gin is not usually associated with cocktails in which it plays a major role. The only thing that comes to mind is Dry Martini, but that's a song from a completely different album. Nevertheless, apart from dry gin, there are a large number of other varieties, some of which are quite suitable for an old-fashioned. For example, this one, Filiers, barrel-aged Belgian gin. So, to the old-fashioned glass, add 2 ounces of aged gin. If you don't have it, try using Old Tom gin, but I don't think that regular London dry gin will work here. Simple syrup, which is equal parts water and sugar, a quarter ounce, 7 milliliters. Peychaud's bitters, 2 dashes. You can use Angostura if you don't have it. Fill the glass with ice and stir thoroughly for about 20 seconds. Express the oils from a lemon peel and garnish with it. And this is how you make Gin Old Fashioned. Gin provides a smooth, slightly woody flavor, with notes of juniper, herbs and spices. The barrel aging process also added a hint of vanilla. This is a well-balanced cocktail that is both sweet and bitter, with a complex flavor profile. A touch of brightness of the lemon peel. Great cocktail. Maybe I should have used vanilla instead of simple syrup, but that's the beauty of the old-fashioned. You can do whatever you want with it. The next variation is Bourbon Toscano. This is an old-fashioned twist at popular restaurant Tmax, T-M-A-C-S, in Washington State. It is a smoked cocktail where the orange flavor comes from Aperol, which replaces the orange zest in the classic recipe. The brightening that the citrus oil introduces is beautiful, but I wanted to make a drink more defined and complex while staying true to its nature, says Logan Thies, the owner of Tmax. So, to the old-fashioned glass, add Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 2.5 ounce, 75 milliliters. Aperol, half an ounce, 15 milliliters. 2 dashes of rosemary cocktail spice bitters, but I don't have any, so I'm gonna use regular Angostura bitters instead. Fill the glass with ice and stir it thoroughly. The original gets its smoky notes from the ice that is made with water that has been smoked with cherrywood chips. I don't have such ice, so I'll use a smoker. Put a little bit cherrywood chips to the smoker, fire it up and let it smoke the cocktail. Now garnish with a rosemary sprig and an orange chip. And this is how you make Bourbon Toscano. It is a nice smoky cocktail. To be honest, I like the original old-fashioned better because of the freshness that the essential oils of an orange peel give it. But this one is definitely not bad. Personally, I'm not a fan of smoked alcohol, but I know that many people like smoked alcohol, like Islay whiskey or something like that, and this is definitely a cocktail for them. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube and Instagram. Tell me in the comments which version of Old Fashioned do you prefer. All the recipes in text form are available on my website thedrcork.com. If you want to support my channel, please consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to additional content. Thank you very much. Drink responsibly and as always, до свидос!